Hi guys, welcome. This is Connor,
And I'm Shane.
and we're doing kind of a follow up in a way to a while ago we watched and did a whole like hour thing on The Outsider because I read the book and then we both watched the show.
Hmm.
And I figured I really like we wanted to keep this kind of idea of me reading the Stephen King book and then us watching the adaptations.
Yeah, just
And
do a cool comparison, especially since Stephen King has written 40 books and
he's written a
has how many
bunch.
movies?
He's had a bunch of adaptations, and we had this. You got this a while ago. This two pack on digital two pack.
Yeah,
So
it's weird to have. I just want to say it's weird to have like a digital collection sometimes, or even physical collection. I guess for me, who loves like movies a lot, because I think I got that combo pack in the
a long time
fall of
ago,
yeah, like in the fall of last year maybe, and I just never got around to finding the right time to watch it until now.
which
And
yeah, I
I've got
saw
like
that.
several movies like that.
I saw that, so I was like, cool. I went out and I got the book before all the stores closed down. And
Hmm.
of course, by the way, we're talking about Pet Cemetery. You will know this, viewer, because you have the uh the thumbnail and the title, so you know what we're talking about.
Hopefully
However,
eyeballs.
hey, some people would like to do like tab only or make it like a podcast thing, so it's fine. But
Yeah.
we are talking about Pet Cemetery, which I did read the book. I
Hmm.
did. Can you hear this, Shane? Me doing
Yeah.
this?
I hear
Okay,
the book.
that's
The very
that's
thin book, I'm assuming.
it is. Great question. The book is, I mean, do you want like how many pages including not book pages? Because the book
Like,
itself, the story itself is 395 pages.
well, that's actually longer than the book I have in my hand, which is the Andromeda Strain. Surprisingly, is only 290 pages.
Yeah, the fact I read this in like a week, maybe, is
Hmm.
pretty good. It also has so before we get into a plot, the plot, or
Hmm.
maybe should we do plot first so people know if they don't know the story?
We'll just go ahead and
Okay,
give a general.
okay. So the plot of the book and also the original movie, the 1989 movie,
Hmm.
is you got family, the Creeds, headed by Lewis Creed. They moved to Ludlow, Maine, for him to take a job as like the head of the student like ER department.
Hmm.
Which yeah, I mean, when I was on campus, we had that. We had like a little house, place to go to,
Yeah.
a mini doctor's office, and so he's the head of that. And of course, during this time, he meets his neighbor Judd, who is who's like a very old guy. He was literally born in the book, at least when it makes sense. He
Hmm.
was born in 1900, so he was like 83 years old or 84 years old.
Yeah.
So, which it can't be. It can kind of be that in 1989 movie, but it definitely can't be that in the
Definitely
20.
not the 2019 one. He'd be
But
120 years old.
hey, I mean, that was John Lithgow. He could do it, man. He's amazing.
He
But
is.
that's anyway. So they find there's like this path leading from their home that goes to this place called the Pet Cemetery,
Hmm.
which is spelled incorrectly.
Yeah, oh man, every time I was typing my reviews for those, it was irritating me because it does the red squiggly line, and I'm like, I know it's spelled wrong, but this is
Well,
how it's spelled.
yeah. I would see the way I did it because I wrote something on it because once I get through the plot, Pet Cemetery is a weird book to adapt. It's really strange.
Okay, so me and you, let's just preface this with me and you haven't actually talked that much about these movies, except for
No,
maybe like just a general feeling
the
overall. Not
most
even that, I think.
the most I think I texted you was, "Oh my gosh, this movie is my favorite." Oh my gosh, I got to the ending.
And I'm pretty sure the only thing I said was, "Wow, the new one is definitely different."
I told you it's different, and then you texted me back like a day later. It was different. Well,
and I
anyway,
don't and I don't think just because I want to do a little bit of background on this real quick. I don't think you've read my reviews, have you?
I have not yet. Well, because they're not posted yet, are they?
No, so I didn't know if you read them on there. They're supposed to drop on Friday and Saturday. Okay. And I think it's so funny that you say this book is a hard book to adapt because in my reviews, like my feelings about this movie is that, or that this book, I guess,
The story.
is the story. Um, what I started with the first review was this quote of just because you can doesn't mean you should. But that also is relevant to the actual character of Lewis. Just because you
Yes.
can doesn't mean you should. But that's also how I felt about the movies based off the book. And we can
So,
go into that a little bit more, but we probably feel about the same when it comes to
so,
it.
so yeah. So there's this place called the Pet Cemetery, and there is this big deadfall, which we get. It's called that in the book, and it's
Hmm.
called that in the 2019 version. It's not named. It's just there,
Hmm.
which is fine. Which is I couldn't remember what it's called until the second movie said it,
Yeah.
where they were just told like you shouldn't go there, and then uh his first day is literally his first day in the book, and I think in the at least in the 1989 version,
Hmm.
it's his first day when a kid comes in with his head like totally exposed, hit by a truck, and he dies. And when he dies, he gives like Lewis a warning that he's gonna come back. And then
Ooh.
later that night, he does come back, and he says, "Hey, you see that deadfall? Don't go there. It's tainted. It's bad. Don't go there."
Yeah. And
And then so that happens. And
yeah, I'll
then
wait till you get to the end because I have a lot of issues with this story.
okay, in the book, it's even more strange. I'll get to problems with the book, but months later,
Hmm.
I would say though the 1989 movie does this very well by just showing like them changing like the ornaments or like the stuff like the wreath or whatever on the door to signify it. That's really good. I like that.
Hmm.
But in the book, it feels like a long time. Months later, his family, Lewis's family, goes to Chicago, where they're originally from, for Thanksgiving, and Lewis and his wife Rachel, her dad, they do not see eye to eye. Very obvious, like very that kind of trope.
Hmm.
In the book, there's a lot more stuff where the dad does not like him, and even like was saying, "I will pay your medical, I will pay for medical school if you do not marry my daughter," and he still says no. So it's like he does not like him. They do not like each
God,
other.
that's so infuriating. What
So
what you're telling me was in the book is already so infuriating to me.
and also by this point, Rachel is very her whole point so far is that she does not like death, and you do not know why. She
Hmm.
is very like, I don't like death. You shouldn't be talking to our daughter about death.
Hmm.
The daughter is like, we have this cat named Church, who is he's my cat. Uh, he's my cat. God can have his own cat.
Hmm.
Which I'll get to this after I finish it. And so Thanksgiving Day, cat ends up dead on Judd's lawn. And when they're going to bury it, Judd is like, "Hey, Ellie loves this cat. Let's go take it over the deadfall, and we'll bury it someplace else." And he says it's Mimac, or which is what's called in the book and in the first movie. It doesn't get a name, but that's what it is.
Hmm.
And it was buried there, and that the ground is sour. And so they bury the cat. It comes back different than how it went in. And then
Yeah,
so
Judd, come on now.
and then yeah, uh Lewis is like, "Hey, what's up? Why you do what like why is it back?" And Judd reveals that he had a dog that died named Spot, which came back mean. And then he had like there's other examples in the book which the other movie shows, like the bull comes back.
Hmm.
And there's a point which is my main problem with adapting this book, which I'll get to after I go through the synopsis, that I'm not reading off of anything, it's just in my head.
Hmm.
Uh so there's that, but then it's fine. They're like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" It's fine. Then uh Days later, literally. It's like the most infuriating thing. So that's like the first half of the book. The first 200 pages is that's all that's happened.
Yeah.
Then, the first 1989 movie does it differently where they're flying a kite, and then basically they have two kids, Lewis and Rachel. They have Ellie and Gage. I'll make this point now.
Mhm.
Ellie is her nickname. All three versions of the story have a different name for what Ellie stands for, and it drives me
Oh.
crazy. It's like it's Eleanor, it's Eloise, it's like three different names that they give this. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well,
Uh,
at this point in the synopsis, okay, just go by the book, and then we'll dive into what the movies do
okay,
because
so
I that is the most interesting part I want to talk about.
so yeah, I'll finish it up.
Because
So
the only one I
doing
don't know
this,
is from the book.
so in the book, uh, they uh Lewis has his like last day that he says is the last good day with Gage where they go fly a kite,
Hmm.
which is usually I use as an insult, which makes it very funny for me to say as a good thing.
Hmm.
I mean, he's like, "Oh, go fly a kite,"
Go fly a
uh,
kite.
which they do, and they have a great time. And then it cut to a time later where Gage has died because he ran out into the road and got hit by the trucks because they live on a very busy highway.
So that happens in the book, though.
That happens in the book, and
Okay.
then that is like paid like that's halfway through the book. Then it
Okay.
goes through a very long, detailed process of the funeral,
Hmm.
which I will say is good in the book that I'm missing in the first movie. Because in the first movie, it's like which is the most funniest thing, right? He dies, and he's like,
Hmm.
it's like the Darth Vader thing from Revenge of the Sith, only it's literally repeated, so it's funnier.
Hmm.
He dies in the book. Uh, they bury him, and Lewis lived with his uncle, who was an undertaker, or who ran a cemetery like that, funeral home. And so Judd makes this thing that, hey, you put this kind of grave on your son Gage, meaning you could come back there. So let me tell you the story of Timmy Baderman, who came back, and how that was a bad idea.
Okay.
Now, in the book, which is my biggest problem with the movie. In the book, they have to kill him again because he died in World War II, and now people are seeing him around again, and the military is about to come and be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Hmm.
So they do that, and then Lewis is like, "You know what, though? But he was fine." So He goes and sends Ellie and Rachel to Chicago, so he can then go and break in and get Gage's body. Doing this, Ellie gets like premonitions of, oh my gosh, I need to. There's someone named Pax Cal, which is Victor, the guy from the beginning,
Hmm. The one that
saying,
got hit by the truck or the car.
coming to me saying, it's Chuck, who's saying, oh my gosh, Daddy's doing this thing and I have a bad feeling. Getting
Mm.
Rachel to come all the way home, to race home, and then to go and she calls Judd on the way, and Judd saying, no, come to my house. Let me explain what's going on, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Only Judd falls asleep. I'm almost
Uh-huh.
done.
Oh, you're good.
Judd falls asleep. Lewis returns, buries Gage, goes home, falls asleep. Gage wakes up, goes to Judd's house, and kills him. And then when Rachel comes, she sees. So what makes sense in the book that doesn't in the 1989 version is that when she sees her house, he's put the car in the garage so it looks empty. It looks like there's nobody there anyway.
Hmm.
So that makes sense for her to go to Judd's house like she said.
Yeah.
So she goes and she finds him dead. And then she goes and there's this entire part where you find out in this excruciatingly long chapter monologue, which is my main problem with the book, is that it only gives out information through giant monologues that are chapters long.
Hmm.
Uh, that she had a sister with spinal whatever, like big spinal disorder that
I don't know what it's called, but I know what you're
yeah.
talking. Yeah.
and she scared her so badly and was like hated her, and they hated each other and so scared of her that she died. Her sister died, Zelda died while she was home alone,
Mm-hmm.
and she couldn't handle it, so she's afraid of death.
Mm-hmm.
That's her whole deal. She goes home. She goes to Judd's, where she is then killed by Gage. Lewis wakes up and is like sees the cat standing outside Judd's house, and he goes and he kills the cat with morphine. He gives it a giant morphine injection, which they don't say in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. And then Gage attacks him, he kills him, sees his wife is dead, tries to bring him back, goes and brings her back. And then in the book, it ends in a very like haunting ending. In the movie, in the 1989 version, it is the cheesiest way you could possibly do that scene.
So how is it? Yeah. So how is it in the book?
In the book, let me look in the very last pages. In the book, so some things are the same. He is playing cards by himself.
Mm-hmm.
When the wife comes in,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where is it? He did not. This is literally the end of it. He did not turn around, but only looked at his cards as the slow, gritting steps approached. He saw the Queen of Spades. He put it. He put his hands on it. The steps ended directly behind him. Silence. A cold hand fell on Lewis's shoulder. Rachel's voice was grating, full of dirt. "Hello, darling," it said. That's the ending. It's very like ambiguous, but you know what it's kind of talking about.
Yeah.
Very good. I like that ending a lot. It's very haunting.
Okay. 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 So
I need
we got
water, so rant about this.
so we got the story, the book. Okay. So we got the story version of from the book. Where it all
Which
originated from.
which is exactly like the 1989 movie, which makes sense because Stephen King wrote it.
Yeah.
He wrote the screenplay, which makes
So
sense.
maybe it's just me, but I know a lot of. I haven't read a lot of Stephen King stuff, but I've seen a bunch of his movies that he has worked on and whatnot. This seems like a story that's a very good premise, but a mediocre execution.
Would you like me to say the biggest flaw about both the movies and the book?
Okay.
That is a change that is okay. So in
I
the
don't want to
book,
get into the 2019 one yet, but we can do the
well, no,
89 one.
it's a problem between both.
Okay, as long as it's not the big thing. You know what I'm
No,
talking about. Okay.
yes. Oh my god. Oh, okay.
Because
So,
I've got to separate myself from doing that one.
Okay. Sorry, I'm laughing because it's insane. Okay. So in the book, the whole reason Judd says to bring back Church the cat, Winston Churchill the cat,
Mm-hmm.
is because aside from the bull, which came back angry, every other animal was dumb. Every other animal was just kind of slow and dumb. Meaning, if you bring it back, it's fine. It will still be there, but it is not. It's just not going to be the same. It's going to be like it's totally off in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, Winston Churchill is a little bit different, but
Mm-hmm.
the main thing in the book. So they do that, and in the book, you just kind of get weird vibes. You see the cat, and you're like, something's wrong with that cat. You don't know what it is, but something's wrong with that cat.
Yeah.
Then you learn about Timmy, who came back
Mm-hmm.
again, basically fine, just kind of dumb and separate-minded.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells Lewis, okay, it is fine. I can bring Gage back, it is fine. We then get a flashback to a scene where apparently they had this conversation where if Gage ended up being special, would we still take care of him and would we still love him? And they, of course, say yes.
Yeah.
Very, Very, coincidental, but they had that discussion and it's fine.
Mhm.
So he's like, okay, cool, I can do this. Now the
No.
one Now, the one biggest change that they make is one, getting into the cemetery to get his body is like the biggest ordeal. It is like
Mm,
30 pages in the book for him to get over the giant fence, dig up the grave, get him out of the cemetery, and get him into the. It's like a whole thing,
mhm,
which they cut out in both movies, which is fine. Who cares?
mhm.
But when he comes back, Gage does, he is corrupted by something that I cannot believe that I really wanted to spoil for you and tell you that this is in this movie because it's
Well,
in the sequel. It's in 2019. Is the reason why the ground is sour. Because in the 1989 version, you don't know. It just is.
mhm.
The ground is corrupted by a Wendigo, which is a creature that is born from eating human skin, from
God,
eating humans.
Ooh. Okay.
Which
Okay.
in the book it kind of makes sense because it has been corrupted by that kind of idea
Okay. Okay.
somehow. And
Okay.
then it comes back, it is corrupted, it kills. So that is the premise of the book. The problem with the book with that is that there's nothing scary for most of the book
Okay.
because the cat is basically fine. In translating it, making Winston Winston Churchill evil. I don't know why I'm calling it Winston when his name is Church,
Mhm.
because that's what they call it in the book too. Making him evil, and the fact that it is on record saying, especially in the first one in 1989 version, that when he comes back, he is crazy, makes it make no sense why he would do it. It makes sense in the book, but then the book has the problem of not being interesting.
Okay. Okay. I took my glasses off for this. Okay. So there's nothing to this story, at least from the movie's perspective. It might be a little bit better in the book,
Not
but there's
really.
there's nothing to this story. And the interesting things that it does, there's no reason that is explained, and there's no real understandable motivation for anything that anybody does. I mean, I understand that there's motivation that they try to explain, but it's not like motivation that I believe with our
So,
characters. So, like
which
my biggest issue in both of the movies that I put in both my reviews was all of the supernatural kind of stuff that's just literally there for the sake of being there with no explanation or no reasoning, nothing like that. And I'm not talking about them, the like the animals or the people being brought back to life if they're buried there. That's fine. Okay, I'm okay with that because
that's
that's
the
the whole
premise.
point.
You have to buy
Yeah,
into the premise.
but it's the why is he being haunted by this guy that got hit by a truck? What's his connection to that? Is it because he's at that house? Is it because he's some kind of gifted character from the Doctor Sleep or the Shining books? Why is it that in the 2019 one he can walk or down to his basement and then he's in the woods, but then he wakes up and he's not in the woods, but he was in the woods because his feet are dirty, and then his feet are, I mean, he does the same thing in the other movie. There's no explanation for that stuff.
Okay, so would you
That's
like
just
me
a
to
that's just a
explain what the book says?
yeah, that's just a small bit. Okay. We'll start with that
Okay.
then.
So the book. Uh the in oh my goodness. So you are correct, and the book has the same problem, and the one that goes behind it all is basically what I can say. Is
Okay, okay.
which which I'll
um
elaborate because I say that as like a joke, but it's supposed to be that place, that burial ground is making you want to do it.
mhm.
Why Victor Victor Pascal is being connected to him makes no sense. In
Like
the
it just
similar way
happens.
of the because his sword died close to the doctor, and why he knows about it, I don't know. Maybe I guess okay. So here's why he might know about that place. I don't know why he knows about the evil place on the other side. other than he's dead and he can sense it's evil, I guess. In the
Hmm.
book, which the 2019 version shows, the kids still know about the place and still go to it. There's not some creepy funeral procession for no reason, but they still know about it. And they like to care for it and stuff. So that's what they know. So it's still like used and known about.
Hmm.
So maybe that's why. And this is a
Well, okay, then
problem,
here's my other thing. Oh, go ahead.
which is actually funny in comparing it to um The Outsider, where The Outsider, an adaptation versus the book. In the book, when the ghosts say they've seen the outsider, you get that scene where they see him.
Hmm.
This is the reverse of that, where Ellie says she saw this guy, and in the movie, you see the guy,
Hmm.
which I absolutely love in the 1989 version because it's the most ridiculous thing. Like he's a Looney Tune cartoon,
Yeah.
which is hysterical, and I love. Like I love it because it doesn't make any sense and it's bad.
So here's my issue with maybe it's just with Stephen King that I understand that in movies, a lot of times it's just better to show and not exactly explain in detail because there's not a reason for it, especially like in the original Star Wars movies when they were, talking about the Force and everything. They didn't explain everything about it, but you didn't need to. It was understood what it was and what was going on.
Which I would actually say makes the movie, the 1989 movie, better than the book
Mhm.
because it is showing you. So instead
But
of reading pages and pages of dialogue about my dog came back and this happened, you just see it.
but that's my problem with I think him as a writer, and I might be wrong in thinking this, but one of the biggest issues with the Outsider was okay, so they defeated the Outsider, and I know that it's just supposed to be about this being, creature, whatever you want to call it, but you did all this setup and gave no real resolution. You gave a resolution to the events that were happening, but you didn't give a resolution as to why they were happening. And it kind of happens in this one the same way. Like it executes on what it's setting up as far as, by the end of the book, but it doesn't execute any reasoning for anything that's going on. And like that's just a common thing that I've put together between the Outsider and this story that he worked on both of them for. So I
Can
don't
I
know if
just
it's just these
say,
specifically or if he's just that's how he is.
is this the time to mention where a lot of this was pulled from what was actually happening in his life, where he was moved to Ludlow, Maine, because he got a teaching job at the same college where Lewis works, and he had his daughter with a cat who said the exact same lines about God can have his own cat, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where he got the idea to write this story while he was living there. And he says in the introduction to the book that he thinks this is one of the scariest books he's ever written, and I don't know what he means by that.
I think it's probably the scariest one.
Which I might get eventually. Anyway,
But like, and even with the Wendigo, so the Wendigo is in the book, which is odd, I guess, because if you introduce the Wendigo, there's again there's lack of
which he
execution. There's
sees,
no reason for the
he
Wendigo to be
sees,
there.
he sees the Wendigo in the book when he's taking Gage up. He sees the Wendigo. He just sees its face, and it looks like kind of like a monster with like a really long tongue that goes like past its neck, and he sees it, and it's creepy. But yeah, it's kind of like it's corrupted by this evil entity. That's a real thing.
That's like that's like if you had a war movie, okay, and there was an earthquake or something that happened while they were in the middle of whatever their war zone, and somebody was just like, "Oh yeah, that earthquake, it's not from the war. That's actually from this thing we know as being Godzilla." Oh really? Oh, that's interesting. And then never bring it up again.
Which
Like what?
yeah, and it's more again. All of the book is kind of written on more. It's just this feeling. It's just this kind of presence. Now I would say in between the two, the book and the 1989 adaptation,
Hmm.
it's just the book, but instead of hold on, let me look up the Audible, how long it is on Audible
Hmm.
to tell you. But it's okay. You know what, Shane?
What?
I take back what I said. Okay, so the book on Audible is 15 hours long,
Mm-hmm.
so obviously shorter version. However, because my brain is a galaxy brain with stupid connections, the person who reads it is Michael C. Hall of Dexter, which almost makes me want to read it because his like voice of Dexter would be perfect for this guy and
Yeah.
have it make sense because that's Dexter does a lot of inner monologuing and makes the fact that in the sequel and not the sequel in the 2019 version a Dexter character John Lithgow is in it, which breaks my brain that both happens.
So okay, so we're almost getting ready to get into the 2019 one because I have to tackle the 2019 one totally different than the way I'm talking about the book and the 1989 one. But
So the
talking
movie, yeah.
before we get into the 2019 one, the other thing I had an issue with was the character motivations or the character reasoning. So before I get to Judd and Lewis, one of the things that really irritated me was that one of the creepiest things in the movie were the flashbacks of Rachel and her sister. But and in the way you explained it to me was that's why she's afraid of death or doesn't like death, whatever. What's the like? There's really no point for that to be there. Like it
Because
doesn't lead up to anything. I don't know. It doesn't really lead up to anything.
so I think so I'm gonna answer it from both the book perspective and like a writer's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You need a character for Lewis to disagree with, so having his wife disagree with him makes sense, and then you need to retroactively find a reason why. Which is why I'm assuming Zelda would be created from that perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah, but
in the book, it's still that same she's kind of haunted by those feelings and makes Lewis hate the dad more because she did that. He did that to her. The dad left her alone with this woman who then dies. And it's very scary.
we don't. I mean, I guess in the movie we just don't get enough background. That's another thing. Both movies are short. I'm not saying I
Yeah,
wanted
which
them to be long, but there's just no substance to them.
so in the book at least, and you see it in the 2019 version. So the 2019 version, despite what we were talking about, it has a lot of accuracies. That's weird. That's not in the book. That's not in the
Mhm.
first movie. Where it
Well,
can
so like,
change its face and make it so it makes itself look like the sister and attacks her, and then reveals that's actually the son that then
mhm.
kills her.
So
So it's
like,
also for horror stuff. But yeah, there's no point.
yeah, but and then another thing is like, there just really is no substance to this story because if you were to ask me, we were just recently talking about Mrs. Miniver. If you were to ask me to describe what that movie's about, I mean, it would take me a minute to, actually get into it because there's a lot to talk about. In this movie, if you were to ask me if someone hadn't seen it before and they came up to me and asked me, "Hey, have you seen Pet Sematary? What's that about?" Well, I'm gonna say, well, these people move in to this cemetery, close to the cemetery called Pet Cemetery, where if you bury things back there, they come back to life. So this guy brings his cat back to life, and it's all messed up, weird now. And then his son dies, and then he buries his son, and then his son comes back, and then his son kills everybody. I mean,
Well,
there's just
okay,
that's it.
so here's a great question to ask you when you say what's the movie about. Are you referring to the plot or are you referring to the themes?
I mean, I guess just in general, like I mean, I know you can get into themes more if you really look into it, but I just don't feel like the movie's trying to tell anything.
So,
Like I know there's themes in it that it's trying to get a point across in some ways, but at the same time I feel like it's not doing enough for me to even care about the themes because it doesn't hold up anything that it's trying to do.
can I talk about now a couple of changes that both versions make?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at least in the 2019 version, that Judd has a wife named Norma. Norma is a character in the book that exists to then die. She dies so Ellie can have like a sense of what death is like.
Mm-hmm.
And I like in the movie that they have this other character, like their maid, basically,
Yeah.
who's in the book, but I don't think you actually ever have a scene with her. I think she's only ever mentioned and has like one line or two lines about, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that like they cut out her and actually used the character they had. This
Yeah.
book also has a bunch of extra characters that don't really do anything other than when Lewis goes to take Rachel up to the cemetery to bury her. One of his partners from the clinic goes to check on him, and you're basically from his perspective watching Lewis do this, and he gets the weird sense and does not follow and is like, "Yeah, this is really scary. This is really dumb. I'm not doing that," and going home.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this the
So,
time to talk about?
so this is time. I'm gonna start this with this. Okay. First of all, the 2019 remake is one of the more disappointing movies I've seen recently, just because of um, the crew they put together on it, especially with Jason Clarke, who I really like, and John Lithgow. But
Oh,
not only is it disappointing, okay, this is not a horror movie.
welcome to the
This
book.
this is to me a comedy spoof movie.
Okay, so that's the biggest problem. We're going to get to it. Okay, so can I say to begin with,
Yeah.
Shane, I I texted you this. Until we get to the end, I like the 2019 version of the story better
Oh, I do too. I had more fun watching it.
because
But
some things it does, some things I do not like that they changed.
Mhm.
The fact that they made Judd kind of creepy for no reason when the fact he's supposed to be like a great guy you can get to know.
Mhm.
That's like his point. And then making him creepy at the beginning is kind of dumb. So
Yeah.
first thing I like, I think the
Oh,
tone of the I think the tone and atmosphere of the 2019 version is what the book is supposed to feel like.
yeah, no, and I okay.
That's what it's
I'm
supposed to
just
feel like.
I just have to explain how I felt watching this movie. Okay.
Okay.
So, I start watching it and it opens up to it's a panning
It's the
like an
flash
aerial
forward.
yeah, it's an aerial shot of the fire uh Judd's house on fire and then the footsteps on the porch.
It's a
Okay.
flash forward that lies to you saying it's going to be the story that you know. It's a lie.
Which is perfect because the first thing I said, because Tiffany was with me when I was watching it, she was not really paying attention, but she was there. And the first thing I said was, "Oh, well, okay, I know exactly where this is going because I just watched the other one the day before," which is exactly what they wanted you to do. I was like, "Okay, I know exactly where this is going to end up being. This is towards the end of the movie. It's going to be the same thing, retread, all that stuff, blah blah blah." Okay, so I'm watching the movie. Second thing I noticed was Jason Clarke makes a better doctor than the other guy did. Like Jason
We
Clarke
did
actually
not
looks like a
okay.
doctor.
We did not mention how terrible the acting is in the 1989 version,
yeah,
right?
the acting was very bad.
It was like that movie was just so like kind of cheap look. It was not a good looking movie. It was I would argue that I had more fun with the 1989 version
Mm.
because it's just so
Well, it
so
feels
poorly made.
yeah. I think it works. I think the 1989 one works better for the period it was made in than the 2019 one does. Even though I had more fun watching it, but that's just a weird kind of thing because I wasn't for a 1989 horror film that it really does fit where it should with all the other ones that are kind of like that. While the 2019 one feels like the countdown of horror movies rather than the Conjuring or It or the comparison I'm trying to say.
Yes. So the reason I liked it more was because it has that modern horror vibe. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
aside from changing the opening around, that it
Mm-hmm.
was going to be the story. Now,
Yeah. So,
second change. Can I go
well,
do
so
this?
was it
Okay.
before the doctor point? Because I just wanted to say that Jason Clarke as the doctor looks more like a real doctor than the other one does.
I'll just say that the fact that his wife is a second protagonist and tackles all of the problems with him is so much better. They
Hmm.
are a couple, and the fact that he hides stuff away from her might make sense. But if you like, I like marriages and movies and stuff where they work together to do stuff.
Hmm.
I like that. And I like that she's the second protagonist and you know all about her sister from the beginning, and that's not randomly dropped on you that, hey, I have this backstory you just never knew.
Yeah.
Set up, I like that so much better. Now, you were saying.
So like I said, the second thing I noticed was that he looks like a doctor, which is nice. Um, skip pretty much everything else until we get to. I mean, just this is how I felt watching it. So obviously the cat comes back, same. I mean, pretty much the same, all kind of creepy cat, whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, that should be your first sign of just kill the cat and not ever mess with the cemetery again. But of course, our characters in this story are really dumb.
Well, okay, so what I like about
Hmm.
that is that he tries to kill the cat and can't, and so he just kind of drops it off. I like that change. That's a
Hmm.
change I kind of like where he's like, I can't do it. And then of course he does eventually.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't even kill the cat. Oh,
No, because yeah,
just
he lets it go and then it leads up to the okay. So
oh my
I'll
god.
get into that part. I'll get into that part. Um, so we get the birthday party,
Yeah,
and
it is Ellie's birthday party.
yeah, so this is when the movie turns into a spoof comedy for me. Because of course, there's a way you can go about it where you're redoing you're remaking an old story and you want to change it up a little bit and you want to do it differently. Now, the different way to do it would be to just give the perspective of Ellie's the one that goes out there and gets hit by the truck.
Which
Okay.
is what they do.
Yeah. Except that they had to go the spoof comedy way of doing it, which is where I started laughing,
It's
where
so
she's out
bad.
where she's out in the middle of the road, which first of all, okay, so you have a bunch of kids and nobody's watching where they're going. Like there's a kid in the middle of the road, especially when you know that like it's heavily implied that that's a very dangerous road.
Can I say
But
that the
anyways,
book is at least better because they're watching and the Gage just kind of gets away from them. They just
yeah,
can't catch up. Like you don't really
they're
know
literally
why
not watching her.
they watch Gage because they're like, oh my god, look. And then the best scene slash worst scene in all of movie history happens.
Yeah, so she's looking at church in the middle of the road, and then Gage is like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing out there?" And still nobody is paying attention until Gage makes it to the road. And then there's a truck, and of course, I'm thinking, oh, okay, so they're either both going to die or Gage is really going to die. It's not going to go the way I thought it was. But then, of course, he saves Gage, and I'm like, oh, okay, so Gage
They
doesn't die.
the
And
truck
then,
swerves out of the way of Gage.
like, they're being so extra about it. And she gets pummeled by the tanker.
Yeah, so you're missing the point where the entire truck crashes and then the tanker flies out and smacks her like it's out of Final Destination, and she flies into the ditch. Oh gosh. And
And at least in the original one, when he brings back Gage, he has like a scar where he obviously got hit at. When when he brings her back, the only thing that's wrong with her is her eyes a little droopy. But
and
my problem is at what point in her brain, because she's not Gage's age. If it was Gage's age, I would understand a little bit more. But what she had so much time to just move, and she just stood there.
and then okay, so you have that scene, and then it's basically the movie for it. It's basically the story again, only a different daughter. Only the daughter has died.
Hmm.
It's bas- and then, and it does the same thing where he. Okay, there's something else I like. Well, I don't like it, but I like it.
Hmm.
Lewis has the idea to bring her back. And instead of going to Judd at all and learning that there's a reason not to,
Yeah. Okay. This was all right.
and he puts Judd to sleep. I kind
Mm.
of like that because it's hard to display in movie terms. I am getting tired and I'm just going to fall asleep even if I don't mean to.
Yeah.
We've all done that before, but you can't really put that on screen in any way somebody would really believe.
Yeah.
Because if you're sitting there on screen, be like, just wake up. So knocking him out makes sense. And then he brings Ellie back. And then the movie goes off. Can I just mention that there was clips before that where it's like his wife, Lewis and Rachel, sitting in bed, and you get flashbacks that are clearly supposed to be scenes in the movie that they cut.
Mm-hmm.
That happens.
Yeah, there was a lot that was cut from this movie because they purposely made it under an hour and a half.
It's an hour and 40.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
The other one was an hour and a half. But okay, so
then Ellie comes back and the entire
that was the
movie
real
changes.
comedy part. So this is how I interpreted the ending, okay? And how I'm watching it, and how if you're listening to this is the reason why you should just skip this movie. Because not only did they go the extra mile with trying to kill Ellie, I mean, having a whole truck just crash and the whole tanker part of it just slam into her face and throw her. Oh gosh. But she comes back and she is hanging out with Dad, which is really creepy.
Which is,
and
it's suitably creepy. And
Dad's
she does
sleeping with her, which is really creepy. Like at that point, you're dead, and just never understood. It was just creepy. So then Mom comes back with Gage, and she's like, no, you're not my daughter, which you probably shouldn't say to a dead thing that obviously there's something wrong with, because, I mean, I would have anticipated the dead thing to probably try to kill me at that point. But no, that's fine. Well, wait, she already killed Judd, though, didn't she?
Yeah, okay, so here's something I like.
Because I just
Here's
missed
something I like.
Yeah.
Here's something I like. So she comes back and she is like destroying stuff because she does not care, because she's of course dead.
Mm-hmm.
She goes and Judd comes over to check on Lewis because he's woken up and he's like, hey, is something going on?
No, nothing's going on, man.
And Ellie gets the feeling that Judd knows, and so she goes and kills him. Here's what I like, but doesn't make sense. I like that all of the deaths that she does are completely like character motivated. I like that she wants to kill Judd because it will benefit her if he is dead.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense when you know the Wendigo exists and you can just say that he's behind it all.
Yeah.
Because in the 1989 version, it makes no sense why he's going after and killing people other than he's creepy and dead.
What if Judd was actually the Wendigo?
That would be, you know what? That'd be interesting.
Wait a second.
That's the way you make this. You know what? There's a third remake in here where that's the twist.
Hold on. You keep talking because I gotta look something up real quick.
So you got that. So which I like. And then the mom comes back and is like, yeah, there's something off. I don't like you. And then of course, Ellie goes and kills the mom. And you're like, okay, so this is just the story again. You're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Only there's the twist where I can't remember what happens to Lewis, but Ellie drags the mom somehow over the deadfall to the burial ground and buries the mom. And that's when Lewis is like, okay, I'm going to just kill my daughter.
I was like, heck yeah, this is gonna get good.
And
then he had
then
the shovel like all up above her and everything. I was like, man, this is about to be gruesome.
Yeah, so he goes and does that. And by the way, the actress who plays Ellie is like, it's comedy, and I think it's like a thing that you can't adapt, where a kid coming and going after and killing you. It's again falling asleep when you know you should be awake. You can't film it. It's stuff that you could see happen.
I actually thought she was pretty good.
Well, there's just a scene where like she gets knocked over the bed and she just pops up like it's whack-a-mole. That I laughed at her. She just like pops up and I just like ha, because it looks like whack-a-mole. But it doesn't look good. A kid trying to kill an adult just does not look good. So she does that and Lewis is about to kill her and you think, okay, cool. The story is as it is supposed to be. Then the mom comes back and kills Lewis, and then they bury him, and he comes back, and then during this, Lewis put Gage away in the car for protection, and the movie ends with all of them coming at Gage and the cat landing on the car, and then you cut the credits. Now, I have a problem, but I don't actually know if it's a problem because you don't know.
Okay,
It's one of those.
so
It's like the thing with people don't like about Snoke. You don't know. So Ellie wanting to build a family, I guess makes sense. But
mhm,
the owl only because Lewis would not know that you shouldn't bring dead people back to life because he hasn't gotten that story yet.
yeah,
So I guess it makes sense in the movie. The problem with that is in the book and in the 1989 version. They don't seem to have that concept of bringing other people back from the dead with them to make a family.
yeah.
Maybe they want to do that, but you don't know. And this is going to lead into my biggest problem that both movies have after you give me this information.
According to Supernatural, the Wendigo was once a person or a man that transformed into the Wendigo due to gluttony, greed, stuff like that. So, I mean, that's according to them.
That makes
But the
sense, okay? So can I tell you how this makes sense, but it doesn't make sense?
mhm,
The best thing about the book, the best thing, is that when you come back from the dead as a
mhm,
human, you can tell people deep dark like evil secrets that they should not know.
mhm,
Like he calls out like when Judd as like in the 40s comes to get him, it goes after like the other people with him and says, "Your wife is sleeping around and you are embezzling money."
mhm,
And it just kind of says it. And then when Gage comes back to life, he can talk in like a demonic voice like normal. And he says like your wife was cheating on you and did all of this stuff that's bad.
mhm,
And it's evil and it only talks about death and only talks about evil things. The movie alludes to that by saying Ellie says to Judd before she kills him, "I know what you did to your wife." That almost makes sense that Judd ate her if we
mhm,
actually knew that. And was what
mhm,
was the Wendigo the whole time. That would make sense. The
mhm.
problem is that you don't know anything about Norma, so who cares?
True, true. I think. Oh, okay, so you had a. Was that your one issue that you had with both of the movies?
Um, yeah. I mean, because that's the most interesting idea, right? That you come
Yeah.
back and you can know secrets that no one should know.
So I have a problem. The beginning of the 2019 one, we saw a bunch of kids in masks and they were doing some kind of secret ritual, whatever you want to call it. That is completely just dropped off after the fact until Ellie grabs one of those masks and starts wearing it, which is whatever. I don't really understand the point in that, but
Would you like to know
why?
why?
Oh, is it explained?
Because it looks creepy now.
Oh, okay.
I think it's
Um,
just to look creepy.
I think that you could have almost, I guess it wouldn't be following the book, but you could have made this movie a Pet Cemetery meets Children of the Corn kind of thing, with like
Well,
these kids who could all actually just be dead, who were brought back, you know, in
and
the
have
Pet
it like make a
Cemetery,
commune.
like killed their families and are just like a group now together that are trying to find more people, like more kids to bring on and like entice. Yeah, yeah. Like there's so
That's
much more
changing
you
the
can do with
story.
that.
That's changing the story, which I like. But like if you so Pet Cemetery is a weird book to try and adapt because there's nothing to it,
Hmm.
which is why like that's changing it a lot. And I like that I like that Rachel's a secondary protagonist, but then you get a bunch of these sequences that clearly make it a haunted house movie, which does
Hmm.
not make sense.
Yeah.
So I like that idea a lot. I wish I was,
Like that'd be just
anyway.
going down a different kind of rabbit hole, like with a totally different story and everything. But I don't know. It kind of there was no point that they for them to really add in those kids. But because they did, it made me start thinking about what they could have done, like in a different world with a different kind of story, and it just ended up being a better, more interesting story than the one we got.
So there's I think one more thing, like big thing,
Hmm.
is so they call Ellie in the 2019 remake, like Elefante the Great and Terrible.
Hmm.
That is an adaptation from the book about something. So in the book, you remember the mom's gruesome backstory.
Yes.
The mom's gruesome backstory ties in to Oz the Great and Terrible from Wizard of Oz.
Oz the Great and Powerful.
It is the Great and Terrible because Zelda, the sister that died, could not
Hmm.
speak and said Oz the Great. It's the great with like the W and terrible, like you're seven.
Yeah.
And so Oz the Great and Terrible becomes the personification in the book of what death and evil is. That is what Lewis calls it. And so that is a reference to that. And I
Oh.
don't, which I guess which almost makes me think, well, of course she'll come back because she's the personification of evil.
Hmm.
But I didn't know that when I was first watching it because the scene where he pulls when Judd first meets Ellie and pulls out the stinger, that's also from the book. So I'm like, okay, it's just adapting random bits of the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't have anything else. The fact that they come back as an undead family is like the start of like the apocalypse, right? Like
Yeah, like
carrying
it
out
ends
from
up going
that,
a little ridiculous.
like spinning out from that, that the mom, like they're gonna go to work and Lewis is gonna kill the people at work and then bring them back, and then they're gonna kill their families. Bring like,
Well, they gotta bury Judd first.
yeah, God, he's waste. He doesn't get enough to do.
This is how The Walking Dead started.
God, I like is there anything else? Let me skim through the book.
I would say so. Out of all the Stephen King movies that I've seen, this is probably the one that you just need to bury and hope that it doesn't come back.
Uh, this is sequel, by the way. This is Pet
I
Sematary 2.
I did see that today.
That
I
has
didn't
like
I
a
didn't watch it, but I
19%
saw
on
it
Rotten
existed.
Tomatoes.
Yeah, it just they need to just. You said that you thought they made it because of rights.
That is why they made it.
Oh, okay.
That is why
Yeah.
they were about to lose the rights to the movie, and so they had to make it.
Well, I can tell why. I mean, they just kind of rushed out a movie because it's just not good. There's no reason to make this movie.
Well, that's the
And,
problem with the book is that like there's no reason to make the story.
and you might as well, I mean, at that point, with the story being not really that great, you might as well have just let the rights lapse. Because I
Yeah,
want
but
to say something real quick before
yeah,
we
but
end.
Shane, it's an IP, which means you have to hold on to it because you don't know when it made a bunch of money in comparison to its budget. It made like $70 million or something.
So its budget was 21 million.
And it made like 100 million or something.
It made 113 million.
Yeah, so it makes sense. It made a lot of money. Of course, you want to keep it.
That's just not. That's. I don't know. Yeah, but
Anyway,
here's the problem: is they're never gonna do anything else with it. They're not gonna make a sequel again. They're
they're
gonna make a
gonna.
remake probably in another 20 years.
Yeah, I can't wait till the next 30-year-old remake. Where we're gonna have to sit down and do this again.
Well, the thing is, it probably only made the money that it did because it was the first, I think, the first Stephen King movie to come off of the first It movie.
That makes sense.
Because It Chapter
It was
2,
not out yet.
it came out last year though, right?
They both came out last year.
Okay, but Pet Sematary came out in like April, I think, or March or April, and It Chapter 2 didn't come out till the fall. So yeah, it was the first one since the first It.
That makes sense. Gosh. Ah.
So they were
Can,
trying to profit off of that.
can you imagine when we do our Justice League talk sometime this week or next week when we talk about the comparisons to that movie and this?
Oh God, it's gonna be
Because
fun.
he references that and now like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Oh man, that's
Anyway,
gonna be a fun talk.
the one that goes behind it all.
Dang, Wendigo.
Can you this is not the show for this. Can you imagine how much better Justice League would be if it was the Wendigo they were fighting and not Steppenwolf?
Wouldn't this have been more interesting if this were like a prequel to an episode of Supernatural?
Uh yeah, but then you'd be expecting Sam and Dean to show up.
That's what I'm saying. Like this seems like their kind of thing to take care of.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Uh
they're gonna burn the whole cemetery. They're gonna kill the family that's still alive, and at some point they're gonna be threatened by almost getting killed by them and being buried alive.
yes. I was about
Dead,
to
I
say
guess.
I'm surprised. This is not here or there, but I'm surprised Supernatural, because that show is ending. Or if not, if you're listening to this after the fact, has indeed ended. I'm surprised
Well,
that's not getting a movie.
I guess it depends because they didn't finish. They haven't finished their last season yet, which is very unfortunate.
Which I think they will go back and finish it.
Well, yeah, I mean they're gonna have to. They actually haven't finished filming it either, I don't think.
No, they have not.
So I just hope that they get the opportunity to wrap everything up like they wanted to, because I mean that show is what 15 seasons, I think
Yeah,
16 seasons.
which is why I'm surprised it's not getting like a big movie wrap up or something.
I'll bet you in a couple of years they might.
Anyway, do you have anything else? If not, like I'm
Yeah,
looking at my few
if you
notes.
are if you're interested in watching these movies, don't. Um, I mean, I guess you don't have to listen to me. If you're kind of interested in them, then watch them. But I would say you would probably have more fun watching the Ninja Turtle movies, and they're not great.
Oh my goodness, there's nothing.
Like that's how bad it is. Like I would rather rewatch both the Ninja Turtle movies, which are not great movies. At least the second one is, a lot more fun than the first one. But both of them are way more fun than sitting down to watch these movies.
Oh my, reading the book was very difficult. It's not very exciting.
Well, for a little update though, which Stephen King project are we looking at for our next one?
Fantastic. Since I do not know if stores are open by me or not to get another one, we are going to do. Let me check if it's still on Amazon, just in case, because you bought these movies and now you should feel bad. You
Oh,
should feel bad. You wasted your money. Well, are you ever going to watch these movies again?
oh, the Pet Sematary ones. When I bought
Yeah.
them, they were on sale for like $16 for both, so I'm not too upset about it.
Okay.
Plus, if any, see the thing about it is, unfortunately, I share my Voodoo with like everybody. So I'm sure out of everybody that I know, someone will probably click on it at some point and watch it just for the fun of it.
So, it is not on Amazon. It was at some point. It's like to Amazon streaming. We are going
Mhm.
to do the 1985 movie Silver Bullet, which is an adaptation of The Cycle of the Wolf, which is a collection of short stories about a werewolf. We're doing that next.
Oh, okay.
After that, we'll
Well,
probably do something else, like Kaylee or something. Something
Carrie,
again.
it,
Um,
it.
you realize I have to read the books, right? And with reading that book for this show and then reading everything else and watching everything else, that might be a while. Though I did say, I remember telling you that I was like, we could do 11/22/63, and I was like, oh, it's only 900 pages long. That's fine.
I just want you to know that I do have the audiobook for it. Okay.
So can you do this part where you have to subjugate yourself to it, and then I get to just get to watch it?
Well, I was just gonna tell you. I mean, I guess that's possible, but I was just gonna tell you that the audiobook of it. Let me see if I can find the total time here.
Is it like 40 hours long or something?
I believe it's like 44, 45 hours long.
You got yourself a good thing to go there. You could listen an hour a day and finish it out in 44 days, 45 days.
You know which one, speaking about books and adaptations, we should really do a whole thing on?
What?
Oh, for anybody that's also listening to this and looking forward to anything else we do, I think we should do Ready Player One.
You can read that book again.
Oh, I've I've listened to it or read it at least 6 or 7 times. I know that book like the back of my hand.
You know people don't like that book, right?
Why
You know
not?
that's that. Oh, you don't even. Okay, we now we definitely have to do it
Okay.
because I know a lot of controversy around the book. I know
Well,
lots of controversy and why people don't like it.
that will make for a very interesting video then.
Okay, so we got Ready Player One, and we've got Silver
Silver
Bullet
Bullet.
slash uh Cycle of the Wolf, which has an interesting backstory. That collection of short stories I can get into. So
Well, with that, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe at Tower City Media. And if you guys have your own comments, questions, or anything you'd like us to address on the show, be sure to email us at towercitymedia@gmail.com.
They bring the How can they bring the family back? It's a wonderful time. I'm so glad you. How can they bring the family? How you totally missed a point doing that? Oh my god. It's not now. It's no longer like a cautionary tale. Now it's just like, well, I guess it is, but it's not. Oh my god. Okay. See you next time.